Last night I took a break from writing and watched a TV program on the history of a young man named Alexander Graham Bell. Bell had just patented his telephone and was having growing pains because the demand of his new invention was so strong. Needing a bigger company, he then went to the giant at that time, Western Union, and asked them if they would buy his patent and his teeny company. He wanted $1 lakh for the whole package. The president of Western Union scoffed at him and turned him down, saying the price was ridiculous. The rest is history. A multi-billion-dollar industry emerged and AT&T was born. The evening news came on the right after the story of Alexander Graham Bell. On the news was a story of another downsizing at a local company. The workers were angry and complained that the company ownership was unfair. A terminated manager of about 45 years of age had his wife and two babies at the plant and was begging the guards to let him talk to the owners to ask if they would reconsider his termination. He had just bought a house and was afraid of losing it. The camera focused in on his pleading for all the world to see. Needless to say, it held my attention. I have been teaching professionally since 1984. It has been a great experience and rewarding one. It is also a disturbing profession, for I have taught thousands of individuals and I see one thing in common in all of us, myself included. We all have tremendous potential and we all are blessed with gifts. Yet, the one thing that holds all of us back is some degree of self-doubt. It is not so much the lack of technical information that holds us back, but more the lack of self-confidence. Some are more affected than others. Once we leave school, most of us know that it is not so much a matter of college degree or good grades that count. In the real world, outside of academics, something more than just grades is required. I have heard it called many things: guts, toothpaste, balls, audacity, bravado, cunning, breeding, tendency, and brilliance. This factor, whatever it is labeled, ultimately decides one's future much more than school grades do. Inside each of us is one of these brave, brilliant, and daring characters. There is also the flip side of character, people who could get down on their knees and beg if necessary. After a year in the Vietnam as a Marine Corps pilot, I got to know both of those characters inside of the intimately. One is not better than the other, yes. Yet, as a teacher, I recognized that it was excessive fear and self-doubt were the greatest detractors of personal genius. It broke my heart to see students know the answers yet lack the courage to act on the answer. Often, in the real world, it is not the smart who get ahead but the bold. In my personal experience, your financial genius requires both technical knowledge as well as courage. If fear is too strong, the genius is suppressed. In my class, I strongly argue students to learn to take risks, to be bold, and to let their genius convert that fear into power and brilliance. It works for some and just terrifies others. I have come to realize that for most people, when it comes to the subject of money, they would rather play it safe. I have had to file questions such as why take risk, why should I bother developing my financial IQ, why should I become financially literate, and I answer just to have more options. There are huge changes up ahead. In the coming years, there will be more people just like the young inventor Alexander Graham Bell. There will be 100 people like Bill Gates and hugely successful companies like Microsoft created every year all over the world. And there also will be many more bankruptcies, layoffs, and downsizings. So, why bother developing your financial IQ? No one can answer that but you. Yet, I can tell you why I myself do it. I do it because it is the most exciting time to a life. I would rather to welcoming change than derogating change. I would rather to be excited about making $1 million than worrying about not getting a raise. This period we are in now is the most exciting time, unprecedented in our world's history. Generations from now, people will look back at this period of time, and remark that what an exciting era it was have been. It was the death of the old and birth of the new. It was full of turmoil and it was exciting. So why bother developing your financial IQ? Because if you do, you will prosper greatly, and if you don't, this period of time will be a frightening one. It will be a time of watching some people move boldly forward while others cling to worn out like preserves. Land was wealthy 100 years ago, so the person who owned the land owned the wealth. Later, wealth was in factories and production, and America rose to dominance. The industrialist owned the wealth. Today, wealth is in information, and the person who has the most timely information owns the wealth. The problem is that information flies around the world at the speed of light. The new wealth cannot be contained by boundaries and borders as land and factories were. The changes will be faster and more dramatic. There will be a dramatic increase in the number of new multimillionaires. There will also be those who are left behind. I find so many struggling today, often working harder simply because they cling to old ideas. They want things to be the way they were, and they resist change. I know people who are losing their jobs or their houses, and they blame technology or the company or their boss. Sadly, they fail to realize that they might be the problem. All ideas are their biggest liability. It is a liability simply because they fail to realize that while that idea or way of doing something was an asset yesterday is gone. One afternoon, I was teaching how to invest using a board game. I had invested cash flow as a teaching tool. A friend had brought someone along to attend the class. This friend of a friend was recently divorced, had been badly burned in the divorce settlement, and was now searching for some answers. Her friend thought the class might help. The game was designed to help people learn how money works. In playing the game, they learn about the intention of the income statement with the balance sheet. They learn how cash flow between the two, and how the road to wealth is through striving to increase your monthly cash flow from the asset column to the point that is exceeds your monthly expenses. Once you accomplish this, you are able to get out of the rat race and out onto the fast track. As I have said, some people hate the game, some love it, and others miss the point. This woman missed a valuable opportunity to learn something. In the opening round, she drew a duad card with a boat on it. At first, she was happy. Oh, I have got a boat. Then, as her friend tried to explain how the numbers worked on her income statement and balance sheet, she got frustrated because she never liked math. The rest of our table waited while her friend continued explaining the relationship between the income statement, balance sheet, and monthly cash flow. Suddenly, when she realized how the number worked, it dawned on her that her boat was eating her life. Later on in the game, she was also downsized and had a child. It was a horrible game for her. After the class, her friend came by and told me that she was upset. She had come to the class to learn about investing and did not like the idea, and that it took so long to play a silly game. Her friend attempted to tell her to look within herself to see if the game reflected her in any way. With that suggestion, that woman demanded her money back. She said that the very idea that a game could be a reflection of her ridiculous. Her money was promptly refunded and she left. Since 1984, I have made millions simply by doing what the school system does not do. In school, most teachers lecture. I hated lecture as a student. I was soon bored and my mind would drift. In 1984, I began teaching via games and simultaneous, and I still rely on these tools today. I always encourage adult students to look at games as reflecting back to them what they know and what they need to learn. Most importantly, games reflect behavior. They are instant feedback system. Instead of the teacher lecturing you, the game is giving you a personalized lecture on that is custom made just for you. The friend of the woman who left later called to give me an update. She said her friend was fine and had calmed down. In her cooling off period, she could see some slight relationship between the game and her life. Although she and her husband did not own a boat, they did own everything else imaginable. She was angry after her divorce, both because he had run off with a younger woman and because after 20 years of marriage they had accumulated little in the way of assets. There was virtually nothing for them to split. Their 20 years of married life had been incredible fun, but all they had accumulated was a ton of doodles. She realized that her anger at doing the numbers, the income statement, and the balance sheet come from her embarrassment about not understanding them. She had believed that finances were man's job. She maintained the house and did the entertaining, and he handled the finances. She was now quite certain that in the last 5 years of their marriage he had hidden money from her. She was angry at herself for not being aware of where the money was going, as well as for not knowing what about the other woman. Just like a word game, the world is always providing us with instant feedback. We could learn a lot if we tuned in more. One day not long ago, I complained to my wife that the cleaners must have shrunk my pants. My wife gently smiled and poked me in the stomach to inform me that the pants had not shrunk. Something else had expanded me. The cash flow game was designed to give every player personal feedback. Its purpose is to give you options. If you draw the board card and it puts you into debt, the question is now what you can do. How many different financial options can you come up with? That is the purpose of the game, to teach players to think and create new and various financial options. Thousands of people throughout the world have played this game. The players who get out of the rat race the quickest are the people who understand numbers and have certain financial minds. They recognize different financial options. Rich people are often creative and take calculated risks. People who take the longest are people who are not familiar with the number and often do not understand the power of investing. Some people playing cash flow gains lots of money in the game, but they don't know what to do with it. Even though they have money, everyone else seems to be getting ahead of them. And that is true in real life. There are a lot of people who have a lot of money and do not get ahead financially. Limiting your options is the same as hanging on the old ideas. I have a friend from high school who now works at three jobs. Years ago, he was the richest of all my classmates. When the local sugar plantation closed, the company he worked for went down with the plantation. In his mind, he had but one option, and that was the old option: work hard. The problem was that he could not find an equivalent job that recognized his seniority from the old company. As a result, he is overqualified for the job he currently has, so his salary is lower. He now works three jobs to earn enough to survive. I have watched people playing cash flow complain that the right opportunity cards are not coming their way, so they sit there. I know people who do that in real life. They wait for the right opportunity. I have watched people get the right opportunity card and then not have enough money. Then They complain that they would have gotten out of the rat race if they had more money. So they sit there. I know people in real life who do that also. They see all the great deals, but they have no money. And I have seen people pull a great opportunity card, read it out loud, and have no idea that is a great opportunity. They have the money, their time is right, they have the card, but they can't see the opportunity staring them in the face. They fail to see how it fits into their financial plan for escaping the rat race. And I know more people like that than all the others combined. Most people have an opportunity of a lifetime flash right in front of them and they fail to see it. Years later, they find out about it after everyone is scored rich. Financial intelligence is simply having more options. If the opportunities are not coming your way, what else can you do to improve your financial position? If an opportunity lands in your lap and you have no money and the bank won't talk to you, what else can do? What else can you do to get the opportunity to work in your favor? If your hunch is wrong and what you have been counting on does not happen, how can you turn a lemon into millions? That is financial intelligence. It is not so much what happens, but how many different financial solutions you can think of to turn a lemon into millions. It is how creative you are in solving financial problems. Most people only know one solution: work hard, save, and borrow. So, why would you want to increase your financial intelligence? Because you want to be the kind of person who creates your own luck. You take whatever happens and make it better. Few people realize that luck is created just as money is. And if you want to be luckier and create money instead of working hard, then your financial intelligence is important. If you are the kind of person who is waiting for the right thing to happen, you might wait for a long time. It's like waiting for all the traffic lights to be green for 5 miles before you will start your trip. As young boys, Mike and I were constantly told by my rich dad that money is not real. Rich dad occasionally reminds us of how does we came to the secret of money on that first day we got together and began making money out of plaster of Paris. The poor and middle class work for money, he would say. The rich makes money. The more real you think money is, the harder you will work for it. If you can grasp the idea that money is not real, you will grow rich faster. What is it? Was a question Mike and I often come back with. What is money if it is not real? What we agree it is, was all rich dad would say. The single most powerful asset all we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth seemingly instantaneously. An untrained mind can also create extreme poverty that can crush a family for generations. In the information age, money is increasing exponentially. A few individuals are getting ridiculously rich from nothing, just ideas and agreements. If you ask many people who trade stocks or other investments for a living, they see it done all the time. Often millions can be made instantly from nothing, and by nothing, I mean no money was exchanged. It is done via agreement, a hand signal in trading pit, a blip on trader's screen in Lisbon from a trader's screen in Toronto and back to Lisbon, a call to my broker to buy and a moment later to sell. Money did not change hands, agreements did. So why develop your financial genius? Only you can answer that. I can tell you why I have been developing this area of my intelligence. I do it because I want to make money fast, not because I need to, but because I want to. It is a fast, fascinating learning process. I develop my financial IQ because I want to participate in the fastest game and biggest game in the world, and in my own small way, I would like to be a part of this unprecedented evolution of humanity, the era where humans work purely with their minds and not with their bodies, because it is where the action is. It is what is happening. It's hip, it's scary, and it's fun. That is why I invest in my financial intelligence, developing the most powerful asset I have. I want to be with people moving badly forward. I do not want to be with those who left behind. I will give you a simple example of creating money. In the early 1990s, economy of Phoenix, Arizona was horrible. I was watching TV show when a financial planner came on and began forecasting doom and gloom. His advice was to save money, put $100 away from every month. He said, in 40 years you will be a multimillionaire. Well, putting money away every month is a sound idea. It is one option, the option most people subscribe to. The problem is this: it blinds the person to what is really going on. It causes them to mismeasure opportunities for much more significant growth of their money. The world is passing them by. As I said, the economy was terrible at that time. For investors, that is a perfect market condition. A chunk of my money was in the stock market and in apartment houses. I was short of cash because people were giving properties away. I was not saving money, I was investing. Kim and I had more than $1 million in cash working in a market that was rising fast. It was the best opportunity to invest. The economy was terrible. I just could not pass up these small deals. Houses were once when like dollars were now 75,000 dollars. But instead of shopping with local real estate agents, I began shopping at the bankruptcy attorney's office or the courthouse steps. In these shopping places, a $75,000 house could sometimes be bought for $20,000 or less. For $2,000, which was loaned to me from a friend for 90 days for $2,000, I gave an attorney a cashier's check as a down payment. While the acquisition was being processed, I ran and advertising a $75,000 house for only $60,000 and no money down. The phone rang hard and heavy. Prospective buyers were screened, and once the property was legally mine, all the prospective buyers were allowed to look at the house. It was a feeding frenzy. The house sold in a few minutes. I asked for a $2,500 processing fee, which they gladly handed over the escrow, and title company took over from there. I returned the $2,000 to my friend with an additional $200. He was happy, the home buyer was happy, the attorney was happy, and I was happy. I had sold a house for $60,000 that cost me $20,000. The $40,000 was created from money in my asset column in the form of promissory note from the buyer. Total working time 5 hours. So now that you are on the way to becoming more financially literate and skilled at reading numbers, I will show you why this is an example of money being invested. During this depressed market, Kim and I were able to do 6 of these simple transactions in our spare time, while the bulk of our money was in largest properties and the stock market. We were able to create more than $190,000 in assets in those 6 buy, create, and sell transactions. That comes to approximately $19,000 a year income, much of it sheltered through our private corporations. Much of that $19,000 a year goes to pay for our company's car, gas, trips, insurance, dinner with clients, and other things. By the time the government gets a chance to tax that income, it has been spent on legally allowed pre-tax expenses. This was a simple example of how money is invented, created, and protected using financial intelligence. Ask yourself, how long would it take to save $1,90,000? Would the bank pay you 10% interest on your money and the promissory note is good for 13 years? I hope that never pay me the $1,90,000. I have to pay tax if they pay me the principal, and besides $19,000 paid over 13 years is a little over $5 lakh in income. I have people ask, what happens if the person does not pay? That does not happen, and it's good news. That $60,000 home could be taken back and resold for $70,000, and another $2,500 collected as a loan processing fee. It would still be a zero down transaction in the mind of new buyer, and the process would go on. The first time I sold the house, I paid back the $2,000, so technically I have no money in the transaction. My return on investment is infinity. It's an example of money making a lot of money. In the second transaction, when resold, I would have put $2,000 in my pocket and re-extended the loan to 30 years. What would my return rate of ROI be if I got paid money to make money? I don't know, but it sure beats saving $100 a month, which actually start over out as $150 because it's after tax income of 14 years earning how low interest. And again, you are taxed on the interest. That is not too intelligent. It may be safe, but it's not smart. A few years later, as the Phoenix real estate market strengthened, those houses we sold for $60,000 become worth when like $10,000. Foreclosure opportunities were still available but become rare. It cost a valuable asset, my time, to go out looking for them. Thousands of buyers were looking for the few available deals. The market has changed. It was time to move on and look for other opportunities to put in the asset column. You can't do that here. That is against the law. You are lying. I hear those comments much more often than can you show me how to do that? The math is simple. You do not need algebra or calculus, and the escrow company handles the legal transaction and the servicing of the payment. I have no roofs to fix or toilets to unplug because the owners do that. It's their house. Occasionally someone does not pay, and that is wonderful because there are late fees or they move out and the property is sold. The court system handles that. And it may not work in your area. The market condition may be different, but the example illustrates how a simple financial process can create hundreds of thousands of dollars with little money and low risk. It is an example of money being only an agreement. Anyone with a high school education can do it. Yet, most people won't. Most people listen to the standard advice of work hard and save money. For about 30 hours of work, approximately $1,90,000 was created in the asset column and no tax were paid. Which one sounds harder to you? Work hard, pay 50% in taxes, save what is left your saving, then earn 5%, which is also taxed. Or take the time to develop your financial intelligence, harness the power of your brain and the asset column. If you use option number one, be sure to factor in how much time it takes you to save $1,90,000. Time is one of the greatest asset. Now you may understand why I silently shake my head when I hear parents say my child is doing well in school and receiving a good education. It may be good, but is it adequate? I know the above investment strategy is a small one. It is used to illustrate how a small can grow into big. Again, My success reflects the importance of a strong financial foundation, which starts with a strong financial education. I have said it before, but it's worth repeating. Financial intelligence is made up of these four main technical skills. First, accounting. Accounting is financial literacy, or the ability to read numbers. This is a vital skill if you want to build business or investments. Investing. Investing is the science of money, making money. Understanding markets. Understanding market is the science of supply and demand. Alexander Graham Bell gave the market what it wanted. So did Bill Gates. A $75,000 house offered for $60,000 that cost $20,000 was also the result of seizing an opportunity created by the market. Somebody was buying and somebody was selling. The law. Fourth, the law is the awareness of accounting, corporate, state, and federal regulations. I recommend playing by the rules. It is the basic foundation, or the combination of these skills, that is needed to be successful in the pursuit of wealth. Whether it be through the buying of small houses, apartment buildings, companies, stock, bonds, precious metals, baseballs, cars, or the like. A few years later, the real estate market rebounded and everyone else was getting in. The stock market was booming and everyone was getting in. The US economy was getting back on its feet. I began selling and was now traveling to Peru, Norway, Malaysia, and the Philippines. The investment landscape has changed. We were no longer buying real estate. Now I just watch the value claims inside the asset column and will probably be selling. I suspect that some of those six little house deals will sell and the $14,000 note will be converted to cash. I need to call my accountant to be prepared for cash and seek ways to shelter it. The point I would like to make is that investment come and go, the market goes up and goes down, economics improve and crash. The world is always handing you opportunity of a lifetime, every day of your life, but all too often we fail to see them, but they are there. And the more the world changes and the more technology changes, the more opportunities there will be to allow you and your family to be financially secure for a generation to come. So, why bother developing your financial intelligence? Again, only you can answer that. I know why I continue to learn and develop. I do it because I know there are changes coming. I would rather welcome change than cling to the past. I know there will be market booms and market crashes. I want to continually develop my financial intelligence because at each market change, some people will be on their knees begging for their jobs. Others, meanwhile, will take the lemons that life hands them, and we all are handed lemons occasionally and turn them into millions. That's financial intelligence. I am often asked about the lemons I have turned into millions. I hesitate using many more examples of personal investment because I am afraid it come across as begging or tooting my own horn. That is not my intention. I use the example only a numerical and chronological illustration of actual and simple cases. I use the example because I want you to know that it is easy, and the more familiar you become with your four pillars of financial intelligence, the easier it becomes. Personally, I use two main vehicles to achieve financial growth: real estate and small cap stocks. I use real estate as my foundation day in and day out. My properties provide cash flow and occasionally spurts of growth in value. The small cap stocks are used for fast growth. I do not recommend anything that I do. The examples are just that, examples. If the opportunity is too complex and I do not understand the investment, I don't do it. Simple math and common sense are all you need to do well financially. There are there are five reasons for using examples. First, to inspire people to learn more. Second, to let people know it is easy if the foundation is strong. Third, to show that anyone can achieve great wealth. Fourth, to show that there are millions of ways to achieve your goals. Fifth, to show that's not rocket science. In 1989, I used to jog through a lovely neighborhood in Portland, Oregon. It was a suburb that had little gingerbread houses. They were small and cute. I almost expected to see Little Red Riding Hood skipping down the sidewalk on her way to Granny's. There were for sale signs everywhere. The timber market was terrible. The stock market had just crashed, and the economy was depressed. On one street, I noticed a for sale sign that was up longer than most. It took all jogging past it one day. I ran into owner who looked troubled. "What are you asking for your house?" I asked. The owner turned and smiled weakly. "Make me an offer," he said. "It's been for sale for over a year. Nobody even comes by any more to look at it." "I will look," I said, and I bought the house a half hour later for $20,000, less than his asking price. It was a cute little two-bedroom home with gingerbread trim on all the windows. It was light blue with greyish accents and had been built in 1930. Inside there was a beautiful rock fireplace as well as two teeny bedrooms. It was a perfect rental house. I gave the owner $5,000 down for a $45,000 house that was really worth $65,000. Expect that no one wanted to buy it. The owner moved out in a big happy to be free, and my first tenant moved in a local college professor. After the mortgage expenses and management fees were paid, I put a little less than $40 in my pocket at the end of each month. Hardly exciting. A year later, the depressed Oregon real estate market had begun to pick up. California investors, flush with money from their still booming real estate market, were moving north and buying up Oregon and Washington. I sold that little house for $95,000 to a young couple from California who bought it who thought it was a bargain. My capital gains of approximately $40,000 were placed into a 131 tax deferred exchange, and I went shopping for a place to put my money. In about a month, I found a 12-unit apartments house right next to the Intel plant in Beaverton, Oregon. The owners lived in Germany, had no idea what the place was worth, and again just wanted to get out of it. I offered $275,000 for a $4,50,000 building. They agreed to $3 lakh. I bought it and held it for 2 years, utilizing the same 1031 exchange process. We sold the building for $4,95,000 and bought a 30-unit apartment building in Phoenix, Arizona. We had moved to Phoenix by then to get out of the rain and needed to sell anyway. Like the former Oregon market, the real estate market in Phoenix was depressed. The price of 30-unit apartment building in Phoenix was $8,75,000 with $2,25,000 down. The cash flow from the 30 units was a little over $5,000 a month. The Arizona market began moving up, and a few years later, a Colorado investor offered us $1.2 million for the property. The point of this example is how a small amount can grow into a large amount. Again, it is a matter of understanding financial statement, investing strategies, a sense of the market and the laws. If people are not versed in this subject, obviously they must follow a standard dogma, which is to play it safe, diversify, and not only invest in secure investments. The problem with secure investment is that they are often sanitized, that is, made so safe that the gains are less. Most large broker houses will not touch speculative transactions in order to protect themselves and their clients, and that is a wise policy. The really hot deals are not offered to people who are novices. Often, the best deals that make the rich even richer are reserved for those who understand the game. It is technically illegal to offer speculative deals to someone who is considered not sophisticated, but of course it happens. The more sophisticated I get, the more opportunities come my way. Another case of developing your financial intelligence over a lifetime is simply that more opportunities are presented to you, and the greater your financial intelligence, the easier it is to tell whether a deal is good. It's your intelligence that can spot a bad deal or make a bad deal good. The more I learn, and there is a lot to learn, the more money I can make simply because I gain experience and wisdom as the years go on. I have friends who are playing it safe, working hard and their profession, and failing to gain financial wisdom, which does take time to develop. My overall philosophy is to plant seeds inside my asset column. That is my formula. I started small and plant seeds. Some grow, some don't. Inside our real estate corporation, we have property worth several million dollars. It is our own REIT and or real estate investment trust. The point I am asking the point I am making is that most of those millions started out as little $5,000 or $10,000 investments. All of those down payments were fortunate to catch a fast rising market and increase tax free. We traded in and out several times over a number of years. We also own a stock portfolio surrounded by a corporation that Kim and I call our personal mutual fund. We have friends who deal especially with investors like us who have extra money each month to invest. We buy high risk speculative private companies that are just about to go public on a stock exchange in the United States or Canada. An example of how fast gains can be made are 1 lakh shares purchased for 25% each before the company goes public. 6 months later, the company is listed and the 1 lakh shares now are worth $2 each. If the company is well managed, the price keeps going up and the stock may go to $20 or more per share. There are years when our $25,000 has gone to a million in less than a year. It is not gambling if you know what you are doing. It is gambling if you are just throwing money into a deal and praying. The idea in anything is to use your technical knowledge, wisdom, and love of the game to cut the odds down. To lower the risk, of course, there is always risk. It is financial intelligence that improves the odds. Thus, what is risky for one person is less risky to someone else. That is the primary reason I constantly encourage people to invest more in their financial education than in stocks, real estate, or other markets. The smarter you are, the better chance you have of beating the odds. The stocks plays I personally invested in were extremely high risk for most people and absolutely not recommended. I have been playing that game since 1979 and have made more than my shares in dues. But if you will reread why investment such as these are high risk for most people, you may be able to set your life up differently. So that the ability to take $25,000 and turn it into $1 million in a year is low risk for you. As stated earlier, nothing I have written is a recommendation. It is used as an example of what is simple and possible. What I do is small potatoes in the grand scheme of things, yet for the average individual, a passive income of more than $1 lakh a year is nice and not hard to achieve. Depending on the market and how smart you are, it could be done in 5 to 10 years if you keep your living expenses modest. $1 lakh coming in additional income is pleasant. Regardless of whether you work, you can work if you like or takes time off if you choose and use the government tax system in your favor rather than against you. My personal basis is real estate. I love real estate because it's stable and slow moving. I keep the base solid, the cash flow is fairly steady, and if properly managed, has a good chance of increasing in value. The beauty of a solid base of real estate is that it allows me to take greater risk as I do with speculative stocks. If I make great profits in the stock market, I pay my capital gain tax on the gain and then reinvest what's left in real estate, again further securing my asset foundation. As a last word on real estate, I have traveled all over the world and taught investing in every city I hear people say you cannot buy real estate cheap. That is not my experience. Even in New York or Tokyo or just on the outskirts of the city, prime bargains are overlooked by most people. In Singapore, with their high real estate prices, there are still bargains to be found within a short driving distance. So, whenever I hear someone say you can't do that there, pointing at me, I remind them that maybe the real statement is I don't know how to do that here yet. Great opportunities are not seen with your eyes, they are seen with your mind. Most people never get wealthy simply because they are not trained financially to recognize opportunities in front of them. I am often asked, how do I start? In the final chapter of this book, I offer 10 steps that I followed on the road to my financial freedom, but always remember to have fun. When you learn the rules and the vocabulary of investing and begin to build your asset column, I think you will find that it's as fun a game as you have ever played. Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn, but have fun. Most people never win because they are more afraid of losing. That is why I found school so silly. In school, we learn that mistakes are bad and we are punished for making them. Yet, if you look at the way humans are designed to learn, we learn by making mistakes. We learn to walk by falling down. We never fell down if would never walk. The same is true for learning to ride a bike. I still have scars on my knee, but today I can ride a bike without thinking. The same is true for getting rich. Unfortunately, the main reason most people are not rich is because they are terrified of losing. Winners are not afraid of losing, but losers are. Failure is a part of the process of success. People who avoid failures also avoid success. I look at money much like my game of tennis. I play hard, make mistakes correct, make more mistakes correct, and get better. If I lose the game, I reach across the net, shake my opponent's hand, smile, and say, "See you next Saturday." There are two kinds of investors. The first and most common type is a person who buys a packaged investment. They call a retail outlet such as a real estate company, a stockbroker, financial planner, and they buy something. It could be a mutual fund, a REIT, a stock, or a bond. It is a clean and simple way of investing. An analogy would be a shopper who goes to a computer store and buys a computer right off the shelf. The second type is an investor who creates investments. These investors usually assemble a deal in the same way a person who buys components builds a computer. I do not know the first thing about putting components of a computer together, but I do know how to put pieces of opportunities together or know people who know how. It is this second type of investor who is the more professional investors. Sometimes it may take years for all the pieces to come together, and sometimes they never do. It's the second type of investor that my rich dad encouraged me to be. It is important to learn how to put the pieces together because that is where the huge wins reside, and sometimes some huge losses if the tide goes against you. If you want to be the second type of investor, you need to develop three main skills. First, find an opportunity that everyone else missed. You see with your mind what others miss with your eyes. For example, a friend bought this rundown old house. It was spooky to look at. Everyone wondered why he bought it. What he saw that we did not was that the house came with 4 extra empty lots. He discovered that after going to the title company after buying the house, they tore the house down and sold the 5 lots to a builder for 3 times what he paid for the entire package. He made $75,000 for 2 months of work. It's not a lot of money, but it sure beats minimum wage, and it's not technically difficult. Second, raise money. The average person only goes to the bank. The second type of investors needs to know how to raise capital, and there are many ways that don't require a bank. To get started, I learned how to buy houses without a bank. It was the learn a skill of raising money more than the houses themselves that was priceless. All too often I hear people say, the bank won't lend me the bank won't lend me money, or I don't have the money to buy it. If you want to be a type 2 investor, you need to learn how to do that, which stops most people. In other words, a majority of people let their lack of money stop them from making a deal. If you can avoid that obstacle, you will be millions ahead of those who don't learn those skills. There have been many times I have bought a house, stocks, or apartments building without a penny in the bank. I once bought an apartment house for $1.2 million. I did what it called tying it up. with a written contract between seller and buyer. I then raised the $1 lakh deposit, which bought me 90 days to raise the rest of the money. Why did I do it? Simply because I know it was worth $2 million. I never raised the money. Instead, the person who puts up the $1 lakh gave me $50,000 for finding the deal, took over my position, and I walked away. Total working time 3 days. Again, it's what you know more than what you buy. Investing is not buying, it's more a case of knowing. Third, organize smart people. Intelligent people are those who work with or hire a person who is more intelligent than they are. When you need advice, make sure you choose your advisor wisely. There is a lot to learn, but the rewards can be astronomical. If you do not know, if you don't, if you do not want to learn those skills, then being a type 1 investor is highly recommended. It is what you know what is your greatest wealth. It is what you do not know what is your greatest risk. There is always risk, so learn to manage risk instead of avoiding it. And this is the end of fifth chapter. We will, after a few minutes, start sixth chapter in this video. Chapter 6 of Rich Dad and Poor Dad book. Work to learn, don't work for money. Job security meant everything to my educated dad. Learning meant everything to my rich dad. A few years ago, I granted an interview with a newspaper in Singapore. The young female reporter was on time, and the interview got underway immediately. We sat in the lobby of a luxurious hotel, sipping coffee and discussing the purpose of my visit to Singapore. I was to share the platform with Zig Ziglar. He was speaking on motivation and I was speaking on the secret of rich. Someday I would like to be a best-selling author like you, she said. I had seen some of the articles she had written for the paper and I was impressed. She had a tough, clear style of writing. Her articles held a reader's interest. You have a great style, I said in reply. What holds you back from achieving your dream? My work does not seem to go anywhere, she said quickly. Everyone says that my novels are excellent, but nothing happens. So I keep my job with the paper. At least it pays the bills. Do you have any suggestions? Yes, I do, I said brightly. A friend of mine here in Singapore runs a school that trains people to sell. He runs sales training courses for many of the top corporations here in Singapore, and I think attending one of his courses would greatly enhance your career. See, Stephen, are you saying I should go to school to learn to sell? I nodded. You are not serious, are you? Again I nodded. What is wrong with that? I was now backpedaling. She was offended by something, and now I was wishing I had not said anything. In my attempt to be helpful, I found myself defending my suggestion. I have a master's degree in English literature. Why would I go to school to learn to be a salesperson? I am a professional. I went to school to be trained in a profession so I would not have to be a salesperson. I hate salespeople. All they want is money. So tell me why I should study sales. She was packing her briefcase. The interview was over. On the coffee table sat a copy of an earlier best-selling book I wrote. I picked it up as well as the notes she had jotted down on her legal pad. "Do you see this?" I said, pointing to her notes. She looked down at her notes. "What?" she said, confused. Again I pointed deliberately to her notes. On her pad she had written Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author. "It says best-selling author, not best-writing author," I said quietly. Her eyes widened. "I am a terrible writer," I said. "You are a great writer. I went to sales school. You have a master's degree. Put them together and you get a best-selling author and a best-writing author." Anger flared from her eyes. "I will never stop so low as to learn how to sell. People like you have no business writing. I am a professionally trained writer and you are a salesman. It is not fair," she fumed. She put the rest of her notes away and hurried out through the large glass doors into the humid Singapore morning. At least she gave me a fair and favorable write-up the next morning. The world is filled with smart, talented, educated, and gifted people. We meet them every day. They are all around us. A few days ago my car was not running well. I pulled it into a garage and the young mechanic had it fixed in just a few minutes. He knew what was wrong by simply listening to the engine. I was amazed. I am constantly shocked at how little talented people earn. I have met brilliant, highly educated people who earn less than $20,000 a year. A business consultant who specialized in the medical trade was telling me how many doctors, dentists, and chiropractors struggling financially. All this time I thought that when they graduated, the dollars would pour in. It was it was this business consultant who gave me the phrase, "They are one skill away from great wealth." What this phrase means is that most people need only to learn and master one more skill and their income would jump exponentially. I have mentioned before that financial intelligence is a synergy of accounting, investing, marketing, and law. Combine those four technical skills and making money with money is easier than most people would believe. When it comes to money, the only skill most people know is to work hard. The classic example of synergy of skills was that young writer for the newspaper. If she diligently learned the skill of sales and marketing, her income would jump dramatically. If I were her, I would take some courses in advertising, copywriting, as well as sales. Then, instead of working at the newspaper, I would seek a job at an advertising agency. Even if it were a cut in pay, she would learn how to communicate in shortcuts that are used in successful advertising. She also would spend time learning public relations and important skills. She would learn how to get millions in free publicity. Then, at night, on weekends, she could be writing her great novel. When it was furnished, she would be better able to sell her books. Then, in a short while, she could be a best-selling author. When I come out with my first book, "If you want to be rich and happy, don't go to school," a publisher suggested I change the title to "Economy of education. I told the publisher that with a little oh, 1 minute. I told the publisher that with a title like that I would sell two books, one to my family and one to my best friend. The problem is that they would expect it for free. The obnoxious title, "If you want to be rich and happy, don't go to school," was chosen because we knew it would get tons of publicity. I am pro education and believe in education reform. If I were not pro education, why would I continue to press for charging our antiquated educational system? So I chose a title that would get me on more TV and radio show. Simply because I was willing to be controversial, many people thought I was a fruitcake, but the book sold and sold. When I graduated from the US Merchant Marine Academy in 1969, my educated dad was happy. Standard Oil of California had hired me for its oil tanker fleet as a third mate. The pay was low compared with my classmates, but it was okay for me. First real job after college. My starting pay was about $42,000 a year, including overtime, and I only had to work for 7 months. I had 5 months of vacation if I had wanted to. I could have take the run to Vietnam with a subsidiary shipping company and easily doubled my pay instead of taking 5 months of vacation. I had a great career ahead of me, yet I resigned after 6 months with the company and joined the Marine Corps to learn how to fly. My educated dad was devastated. Rich dad congratulated me. In school and in the workplace, the popular opinion is the idea of specialization. That is, in order to make more money or get promoted, you need a specialized. That is why medical doctors immediately begin to seek a specialty such as orthopedics or pediatrics. The same is true for accountants, architects, lawyers, pilots, and others. My educated dad believed in the same dogma. That is why he was thrilled when he eventually achieved his doctorate. He often admitted that schools rewarded people who study more and more about less and less. Rich dad encouraged me to do exactly the opposite. You want to know a little about a lot was his suggestion. That is why for years I worked in different areas of his company. For a while I worked in his accounting department. Although I would probably never have been an accountant, he wanted me to learn via osmosis. Rich dad knew I would pick up jargon and a sense of what is important and what is not. I also worked as a busboy and construction worker as well as in sales, reservation and marketing. He was grooming Mike and me. That is why he insisted we sit in on the meetings with his bankers, lawyers, accountants, and brokers. He wanted us to know a little about every aspect of his empire. When I quit my high-paying job with Standard Oil, my educated dad had a heart-to-heart talk with me. He was bewildered. He could not understand my decision to resign from a career that offered high pay, great benefits, lots of time off, and opportunity for promotion. When he asked me one evening, "Why did you quit?" I could not explain it to him, though I tried hard to. My logic did not fit his logic. The big problem was that my logic was my rich dad's logic. Job security meant everything to my educated dad. Learning meant everything to my rich dad. Educated dad thought I went to school to learn be a ship's officer. Rich dad knew that I went to school to study international trade. So as a student I made cargo runs, navy getting large freighters, oil tankers, and passenger ships to the Far East and the South Pacific. Ristad emphasized that I should stay in the Pacific instead of taking ships to Europe because he knew that the emerging nations were in Asia, not Europe. While most of my classmates, including Mike, were partying at their fraternity houses, I would study trade, people, business style, and culture in Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Korea, Tahiti, Samoa, and the Philippines. I was partying also, but it was not in any frat house. I grew up rapidly. Educated dad just could not understand why I decided to quit and join the Marine Corps. I told him I wanted to learn to fly, but really I wanted to learn to lead groups. Rich dad explained to me that the hardest part of running a company is managing people. He had spent 3 years in army. My educated dad was draft exempt. Rich dad valued learning to lead men into dangerous situations. Leadership is what you need to learn next, he said. If you are not a good leader, you will get shot in the back, just like they do in business. Returning from Vietnam in 1973, I resigned my commission. Even though I loved flying, I found a job with Xerox Corp. I joined it for one reason, and it was not for the benefits. I was a shy person, and the thought of selling was the most frightening subject in the world. Xerox has one of the best sales training programs in America. Rich dad was proud of me. My educated dad was ashamed. Being an intellectual, he thought that salespeople were below him. I worked with Xerox for 4 years until I overcome my fear of knocking on doors and being rejected. Once I could consistently be in the top 5 in sales, I again resigned and moved on, leaving behind another great career with an excellent company. In 1977, I formed my first company. Rich Dad has groomed Mike and me to take over companies, so I now had to learn to form them and put them together. My first product, the nylon and Velcro wallet, was manufactured in the Far East and shipped to a warehouse in Newark, near where I had gone to school. My formal education was complete, and it was time to test my wings. If I failed, though, I would go broke. Rich Dad thought it ways to go broke before 30. You still have time to recover, was his advice on the eve of my 13th birthday. My first shipment left Korea for New York. Today I still do business internationally, and as my rich dad I encouraged me to do, I keep seeking the emerging nations. Today my investment company invests in South America countries and Asian countries, as well as in Norway and Russia. There is an old cl- cliche that goes job is an acronym for just over broke. Unfortunately, I would say that applies to millions of people because school does not think financial intelligence in as intelligence. Most workers live within their means. They work and they pay the bills. There is another horrible management theory that goes workers work hard enough to not be fired and honor pay just enough so that workers don't quit. And if you look at the pay scales of most companies, again I would say there is a degree of truth to the statement. The net result is that most workers never get ahead. They do what they have been taught to do, get a secure job. Most workers focus on working for pay and benefits that reward them in short term but are often disastrous in the long run. Instead, I recommend to young people to seek work for what they will learn more than what they will earn, looking down and looking down the road at what skills they want to acquire before choosing a specific profession and before getting trapped in the rat race. Once people are trapped in the lifelong process of bill paying, they become like those little hamsters running around in those metal wheels. Their little furry legs are spinning furiously, the wheel is turning furiously, but come tomorrow morning they will still in the same cake. Great job. In the movie, Jerry Maguire starring Tom Cruise, there are many great one-liners. Probably the most memorable is "Show me the money." But there is one line I thought most truthful. It comes from the scenes where Tom Cruise is leaving the firm. He had just been fired and he's asking the entire company who wants to come with me, and the whole place is silent and frozen. Only one woman speaks up and says, "I would like to, but I am due for a promotion in 3 months." That statement is probably the most truthful statement in the whole movie. It is the type of statement that people use to keep themselves busy, working away to pay bill. I know my educated dad looked forward to his pay raises every year, and every year he was disappointed. So he would go back up to school to earn more qualifications so he could get another raise. Then once again there would another disappointment. The question I often ask people is, where is this daily activity taking you? Just like the little hamster, I wonder if people look at where their hard work is taking them. What does the future hold? In this book, The Retirement Myth, Craig S. Carpel writes, I visited the headquarters of major national pension consulting firm and meet with a managing director who specializes in designing lush retirement plans for top management. When I asked her what people who don't have corner offices will be able to expect in the way of pension income, she said with a confident smile, the silver bullet. When what? I asked, is the silver bullet? She shrugged and said, if baby boomers discover they don't have enough money to live on when they are older, they can always blow their brains out. Carpel goes on to explain the difference between the old defined benefit retirement plan and the new 401k plans that are here. It is not a pretty picture for most people working today, and that is just for retirement at medical fees and long-term nursing home care, and the picture is fighting. Already, many hospitals in countries with socialized medicines need to make tough decisions such as who will live and who will die. They make choose those decisions purely in how much money they have and how old the patients are. If their patient is old, they often will give the medical care to someone younger. The older poor patients get put to the back of the line. Just as the rich can afford better education, the rich will be able to keep themselves alive while those who have little wealth will die. So I wonder, are workers looking into the future or just until their next paycheck, never questioning where they are headed? When I speak to adults who want to earn more money, I always recommend something. I suggest taking a long view of their life instead of simply working for the money and security, which I admit are important. I suggest they take a second job that will teach them a second skill. Often I recommend joining a network marketing company, also called multi-level marketing, if they want to learn sales skill. Some of these companies have excellent training programs that help people get over their fear of failure and rejection, which are the main reasons people are unsuccessful. Education is more valuable than money in the long run. When I offer this suggestion, I often hear in response, "Oh, that is too much hassle," or I only want to do what I am interested in." If they say it's too much of hassle, I ask, "So you would rather work all your life giving 50% of what you earn to the government?" If they tell me I only do what I am interested in, I say I'm not interested in going to the gym, but I go because I want to feel better and live longer. Unfortunately, there is some truth to the old statement. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Unless a person is used to changing, it's hard to change. But for those of you who might be on the fence when it comes to the idea of working to learn something new, I offer this word of encouragement. Life is much like going to the gym. The most painful part is deciding to go. Once you get past that, it's easy. There have been many days I have dreaded going to the gym, but once I am there and in motion, it is a pleasure. After the workout is over, I am always glad I talked myself into going. If you are unwilling to work to learn something new and instead insist on becoming highly specialized within your field, make sure the company you work for is unionized. Labor unions are designed to protect specialists. My educated dad, after failing from Greece with the governor, became the head of the teacher union in Hawaii. He told me that I was the hardest job he ever held. My rich dad, on the other hand, spent his life doing his best to keep his companies from becoming unionized. He was successful, although the unions come close. Rich dad always able to fight them off. Personally, I take no sides because I can see the need for and the benefits of both sides. If you do so as school recommends, become highly specialized, then seek union protection. For example, had I continued with my flying career, I would have sought a company that had a strong pilots union. Why? Because my life would be dedicated to learning a skill that was valuable in only one industry. If I were pushed out of that industry, my life skill would not be as valuable to another industry. A displaced senior pilot with a lakh hours of heavy airplane transport time, earning $1,50,000 a year, would have a hard time finding an equivalent high-paying job teaching in school. Skills do not necessarily transfer from industry to industry. Skills the pilots are paid for in the airline industry are not as important in, say, the school system. The same is true even for doctors today. With all the changes in medicines, many medical specialists are needing to conform to the medical organizations such as HMOs. School teachers I definitely need to be union members. Today in America, the teachers union is the largest and the richest labor union of all. The NEA, the National Education Association, has tremendous political clout. Teachers need the protection of their union because their skills are also of limited value to an industry outside of education. So the rule of thumb is highly specialized than unionized is the smart thing to do. When I ask the classes I teach how many of you can look a better hamburger than McDonald's, almost all the students raise their hands. I then ask, so if most you can cook a better hamburger, how can McDonald's make more money than you? The answer is obvious. McDonald's excellent at business system. The reason so many talented people are poor is because they focus on building a better hamburger and know little to nothing about business system. A friend of mine in Hawaii is a great artist. He makes a sizable amount of money. One day his mother attorney called to tell him that she had left him $35,000. That is what was left of her estate after the attorney and the government took their shares. Immediately he saw an opportunity to increase his business by using some of his money to advertise. 2 months later, his first four-color full-page ad appeared in an expensive magazine that targeted the very rich. The ad ran for 3 months. He received no replies from the ad, and all of his inheritance is now gone. He now wants to sue the magazine for misrepresentation. This is a common case of someone who can build a beautiful hamburger but knows little about business. When I asked him what he learned, his only reply was advertising salespeople are crooks. I then asked him if he would be willing to take a course in sales and a course in direct marketing. His reply, I don't have the time and I don't want to waste my money. The world is filled with talented poor people. All too often they are poor or struggle financially or earn less than they are capable of, not because of what they know but because of what they do not know. They focus on perfecting their skills at building a better hamburger rather than the skills of selling and delivering the hamburger. Maybe McDonald's does not make the best hamburger, but they are the best at selling and delivering a basic average burger. Poor dad wanted me to specialize. That was his view on how to be paid more. Even after being told by the governor of Hawaii that he could no longer work in state government, my educated dad continued to encourage me to get specialized. Educated dad then took up the cause of teachers union campaign for further protection and benefits for these highly skilled and educated professionals. We argued often, but I know he never agreed that over-specialization is what caused the need for union protection. He never understood that the more specialized you become, the more you trapped and dependent on that specialty. Rich dad advised that Mike and I groomed ourselves. Many corporations do the same thing. They find a young, bright student just out of business school and begin grooming that person to someday take over the company. So these bright young people should not specialize in one department. They are moved from department to department to learn all the aspects of business system. The rich often groom their children or children of others. By doing so, their children gain an overall knowledge of operations, business, and how the various departments interrelate. From the World War II generation, it was considered bad to skip from company to company. Today, it is considered smart. Since people will skip from company to company rather than seek greater specialization and skill, why not seek to learn more than to earn? In short term, it may earn you less, but it will pay dividends in the long term. The main management skills needed for success are: first, management of cash flow; second, management of system; third, management of people. The most important specialized skills are sales and marketing. The ability to sell, to communicate to another human being, be it a customer, employee, boss, spouse, or child, is the base skill of personal success. Communication skills such as writing, speaking, and negotiating are crucial to a life of success. These are skills I work on constantly, attending courses or buying educational resources to expand my knowledge. As I have mentioned, my educated dad worked harder and harder the more competent he became. He also became more trapped the more specialized he got. Although his salary went up, his choices diminished. Soon after he was looked out of governor work, he found out how vulnerable he really was professionally. It is like professional athletes who suddenly are injured or are too old to play. Their once high paying position is gone and they have limited skills to fall back on. I think that is why my educated dad sided so much with the union after that. He realized how much a union would have benefited him. Rich dad encouraged Mike and me to know a little about a lot. He encouraged us to work with people smarter than we were and to bring smart people together to work as a team. Today it would be called a synergy of professional specialties. Today I meet ex-school teachers earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They earn that much because they have a specialized skill in their field as well as other skills they can teach as well as sell and market. I know of no other skill to be more important than selling and marketing. The skill of selling and marketing are difficult for most people, primarily due to their fear of rejection. The better you are communicating, negotiating, and handling your fear of rejection, and is the easier life is. Just, I advised that newspaper writer who wanted to become a best-selling author. I advise anyone else today. Being technically specialized has its strength as well as its weakness. I have friends who are genius but they cannot communicate effectively with other human beings, and as a result their earnings are pitiful. I advise them to just learning spend a year learning to sell. Even if they earn nothing, their communication skill will improve, and that is priceless. In addition to being good learners, sellers, and marketers, we need to be good teachers as well as good students. To be truly rich, we need to be able to give as well as receive. In case of financial or professional struggle, there is often a lack of giving and receiving. I know many people who are poor because they are neither students nor good teachers. Both of my dads were generous men. Both made it a practice to give first. Both made it a practice to give first. Teaching was one of their way of giving. The more they gave, the more they received. One glaring difference was in the giving of money. My rich dad gave a lot of money away. He gave to his church, to charities, and to his foundation. He knew that to receive money you had to give money. Giving money is the secret to most great wealthy families. That is why their are organizations like the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundations. These are organizations designed to take their wealth and increase it, as well as give it away in perpetuity. My educated dad always said, when I have some extra money, I will give it. The problem was that there was never any extra money, so he worked harder to draw more money in, rather than focus on the most important law of money: give and you shall receive. Instead, he believed in receive and then you give. In conclusion, I become both dads. One part of me is a hardcore capitalist who loves the game of money making money. The other part is a socially responsible teacher who is deeply concerned with this ever widening gap between the haves and have not. I personally told the archaic educational system primarily responsible for this growing gap. And this is the end of chapter 6. We will see chapter 7 in next video.